ability to talk. Fantastic. Obviously, she's very attractive, very cute, but her views, her eliteness, her like, I know what's right and you don't, and now you want to apologize, bro. This is how the world works when you get on social.
Rachel Zegler has made a dramatic U-turn, retracting her fiery remarks about Trump voters and vowing to avoid political debates. But the fallout may already be irreversible. Rumors swirl in Hollywood that Disney executives, once staunchly supportive of their Snow White lead, are now quietly distancing themselves after months of intense backlash. With a $200 million blockbuster hanging in the balance, has Zegler unintentionally derailed one of Disney's biggest projects? Is this a desperate attempt to salvage her reputation? Or is her Hollywood dream slipping away? As the controversy escalates, her career stands at a crossroads, teetering on the brink of a potential downfall.
A Broadway actress who issued a post saying, F Biden supporters. May Biden or Kamala never have a moment's peace. That person would be fired so fast it would make your head spin. They wouldn't last one more minute in any Hollywood role. This is truly like, she has to go. I'm sorry, Disney. She has to go. And you're going to put out a Disney film with Snow White, a beloved American character, with a woman who hates more than half the country, the half that just elected Donald Trump. This is an incredible pivot point right now. We'll see which way the woke Disney decides to go.
Pay your writers, pay your actors. I have residual checks that would shock you.
Rachel Zegler began making headlines, not for the film itself, but for her bold critiques of the original Snow White. In a series of interviews, she dismissed the beloved classic as outdated and weird, promising a modern, independent twist on the fairy tale. Her remarks didn't sit well with Disney purists, who saw them as a slight against the legacy of the iconic film. The backlash intensified when Zegler doubled down, clashing with critics and fueling heated online debates. Matters escalated further when she waded into divisive political territory, alienating a key segment of Disney's audience. What should have been a triumphant reimagining of a timeless story quickly spiraled into a PR disaster now. With the film's release on the horizon, Disney faces an uphill battle. Can they repair Snow White's damaged reputation before it hits theaters? Or is the controversy too far gone? And more critically, has Rachel Zegler's once promising Hollywood rise come to a screeching halt? Rachel Zegler's words ignited a social media firestorm, sparking both praise and outrage. Supporters applauded her for speaking out, while critics accused her of alienating a significant portion of Disney's audience. As the backlash intensified, Zegler stood firm, refusing to waver. Until now, in a stunning about-face, she has abruptly sworn off political debates, attempting to distance herself from the controversy that has engulfed her career. But is this move too little, too late? Industry insiders suggest Disney executives are quietly retreating, wary that their $200 million Snow White reboot has turned into a PR disaster for many. This film is no longer just a fairy tale. It has become a flashpoint in the broader debate over Disney's future. Has Zegler's outspoken nature derailed her Hollywood trajectory? Can Disney weather the backlash? Or is Snow White already doomed? With tension still high, one thing is clear. This drama is far from over. As the controversy escalated, Rachel Zegler found herself at the heart of a media firestorm. Her remark, "Trump and his supporters never know peace," became a lightning rod, intensifying the already growing backlash against Snow White. What began as a casting controversy had transformed into a cultural battleground. Placing Disney at odds with a significant portion of its audience, the response was swift. Conservatives condemned her words as an attack on millions of Americans, many of whom grew up with Disney and remain loyal consumers. Hashtags like #BoycottSnowWhite trended, with calls for her removal gaining momentum. Even moderates, weary of political drama, saw her statement as needlessly divisive. Yet another controversy in an already polarized industry progresses. Meanwhile, were split. Some applauded Zegler for speaking her mind, while others questioned whether her stance had only deepened the divide, turning what should have been a career-defining role into a source of relentless controversy now. With Disney reportedly distancing itself from its embattled star, one question looms large. Can Zegler reclaim control of her narrative, or has she inadvertently written herself out of Hollywood's fairy tale for good?
Your version of Snow White is different, and it's more of a 2022 version of Snow White. What did you mean by that?
I mean, you know, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird.
Super weird.
So we didn't do that this time.
The backlash against Snow White star Rachel Zegler has hit a boiling point, with mounting calls for Disney to cut ties with its leading actress. The controversy exploded after Zegler posted a fiery statement in the wake of the election, declaring, "May Trump supporters and Trump voters and Trump himself never know peace." Her words went viral instantly, sparking outrage across the political spectrum. Conservatives condemned the remark as an attack on millions of Americans, amplifying the already growing boycott against Disney's live-action Snow White. Even some who don't support Trump found her tone unsettling, calling it yet another example of the divisive rhetoric fueling today's cultural divide now. Under intense pressure, Zegler is walking back her statement. In a new post, she issued an apology. "I let my emotions get the best of me, and I am sorry. I contributed to the negative discourse." But is her apology enough to undo the damage? With Disney reportedly distancing itself and public sentiment turning increasingly hostile, both Snow White and Zegler's career are on shaky ground. Will this moment serve as a turning point, or has the fallout already sealed her fate?
Snow White actress Rachel Zegler only a few days ago decided to tell every single person that had a different political opinion than her,
"May Trump supporters and Trump voters and Trump himself never know peace."
Every time we check in on Disney's upcoming Snow White remake, somehow things get even worse than they were before.
This woman thinks that, the half of America, more than half of America, shouldn't live in peace.
Hello, Disney. You're going to have to redo your film again because this woman is a pig.
There are growing calls tonight for Disney to fire Rachel Zegler, the star of its widely anticipated Snow White remake. It's because of an anti-Donald Trump post she made after the election, writing, quoting here, "May Trump supporters and Trump voters and Trump himself never know peace." Zegler is now apologizing. She writes in a new post, let my emotions get the best of me, and I am sorry," contributed to the negative discourse.
But apparently telling Rachel Zegler to behave normally just isn't an option either. So the other day, in response to the presidential election, Zegler had a very public meltdown on her Instagram stories. She wrote, quote, "F you, Donald Trump." And she proceeded to insult the 75 million Americans who voted for him. Quote, "I find myself speechless in the midst of this. Another 4 years of hatred, leading us towards a world I do not want to live."
Accusations of hypocrisy are now swirling around Disney, with critics pointing to the company's selective approach to controversy. For many, this isn't just about Rachel Zegler. It's about Disney's double standards. When Gina Carano shared politically charged posts, she was swiftly fired from The Mandalorian. Yet Zegler's inflammatory remarks were met with silence. The discrepancy fueled claims that Disney only takes action when it aligns with a particular political stance, further alienating an already disillusioned audience. Meanwhile, Zegler showed no signs of backing down. Rather than de-escalating the situation, she doubled down, accusing Trump supporters of enabling harm and blaming Elon Musk's X, formerly Twitter, for aiding Trump's re-election. Instead of damage control, her words only deepened the divide, transforming Snow White, a film meant to be a magical, family-friendly reimagining, into a cultural battleground for Disney. The timing couldn't be worse. Already grappling with backlash over creative decisions and struggling at the box office, the last thing the company needed was another PR crisis. Yet, by refusing to address the controversy head-on, they now find themselves caught in a firestorm of their own making, with fan outrage mounting and calls for Zegler's removal intensifying. Disney faces a critical decision: stand by their Snow White star and risk further alienating audiences, or cut ties in a last-ditch effort to salvage the film. Either way, The damage may already be beyond repair. Audiences should have been captivated by the magic of Snow White. But instead, they found themselves embroiled in a heated debate over Disney's direction, political bias, and whether the company even understood its own fan base anymore. Zegler's past controversies only added fuel to the fire. Long before Snow White, she had already raised eyebrows by publicly criticizing the marketing of West Side Story, the very film that launched her career. To some, this showcased an actress unafraid to challenge industry norms. But to others, it reinforced a pattern of courting controversy and failing to read the room. By the time she issued her apology, the damage was already done. Many dismissed it as a hollow PR move rather than a sincere expression of remorse. Instead of reigniting excitement for Snow White, the controversy left fans questioning whether Disney had lost touch with what audiences actually wanted, with the company already reeling from a string of box office misfires. Zegler's remarks only deepened the divide between Disney and its core audience. Now, as backlash mounts and demands for her removal grow louder, Disney faces a critical crossroads. Stay the course and hope the storm passes, or take drastic action to salvage the film before it's too late. Zegler's apology only added fuel to the fire, reinforcing the perception that she wasn't truly remorseful, just desperate to stop the bleeding. Instead of quelling the controversy, her carefully worded statement had the opposite effect. Reigniting anger from both sides, critics saw it as a textbook case of Hollywood damage control, accusing her of sidestepping responsibility rather than showing genuine accountability. Some pointed out that a sudden call for peace and understanding directly contradicted the inflammatory rhetoric she had doubled down on just days earlier. Others dismissed it as a calculated move to protect her career rather than a sincere reflection on her words. Social media erupted once again. Comments flooded in, slamming her for hypocrisy, while hashtags like #FireRachelZegler and #BoycottSnowWhite gained even more traction. What should have been an attempt at damage control instead spiraled into another PR disaster, not just for Zegler, but for Disney as well. With the Snow White remake already under heavy scrutiny, this latest controversy has only widened the gap between the studio and its audience. Now, the question isn't just whether Zegler can recover, but whether Disney can salvage the film before the backlash drowns it entirely. Instead of putting the controversy to rest, Rachel Zegler's apology only intensified the backlash. The internet was ruthless. Memes mocking her statement flooded social media, with many comparing it to infamous celebrity apologies that had been handled with far more humility. Rather than earning forgiveness, her response cemented the belief that she wasn't truly sorry, just sorry she got caught. The perception that Disney had orchestrated the apology only made matters worse. Fans accused the company of prioritizing optics over accountability, using a pre-packaged PR response to deflect rather than address the root issue. For many, it was yet another sign of Disney's growing disconnect from its audience, reinforcing the backlash that had already been building over recent creative missteps and disappointing box office performances. Today's audiences expect genuine humility in celebrity apologies. Polished, insincere statements no longer cut it. People want honesty, vulnerability, and a clear acknowledgement of mistakes. But Zegler's response felt like the exact opposite, escalating an already volatile situation instead of calming it. Now, Snow White remains mired in controversy, with Zegler at the center of a PR nightmare that refuses to die down. As calls for Disney to cut ties with her grow louder, the studio faces a critical decision. Stand by their star and risk alienating even more of their audience, or cut their losses before the film's release spirals into an even bigger disaster. The negative reactions started to pour in, signaling trouble ahead. Fans flooded the comments, voicing disappointment over everything from the film's visual style to its radical departures from the beloved 1937 classic. The backlash only intensified when rumors spread that the Seven Dwarfs were being completely reimagined, stripping away the iconic characters who had been central to Snow White for decades. With the film already facing skepticism, Zegler's controversies only made matters worse. Instead of building excitement, Snow White became a lightning rod for criticism, embodying everything fans felt was wrong with Disney's current direction. The boycott movement gained momentum. fueled not only by political outrage but also by a growing frustration with Hollywood's tendency to prioritize reinvention over honoring timeless classics. For Disney, the stakes couldn't be higher. The studio has been struggling to regain its footing after a string of underperforming remakes and controversial creative decisions. Snow White was meant to be a triumphant return to form, but now it risks becoming one of Disney's biggest PR disasters in years. As the controversy continues to rage, Disney is faced with an impossible dilemma: press forward and hope the storm eventually passes, or take drastic action to salvage the film before it even hits theaters. Either way, the fallout from Zegler's remarks has already reshaped the narrative surrounding Snow White, and it may be too late to turn things around. The attempt at modernization backfired. Instead of feeling like a fresh take on a classic, many saw Disney's approach as yet another example of the studio prioritizing trend-driven changes over honoring the heart of the original film. The backlash intensified as leaked set photos revealed the new companions, which bore little resemblance to the beloved characters audiences had cherished for generations. The controversy placed Disney in an impossible position, trying to appease one group while alienating another. On one hand, the studio wanted to avoid outdated stereotypes, but on the other, it ended up upsetting both the dwarfism community and longtime Disney fans. This became yet another example of the studio making sweeping creative changes that, instead of broadening appeal, seemed only to deepen the divide between Disney and its core audience. By the time Rachel Zegler's political controversy erupted, Snow White was already facing an uphill battle. What should have been a nostalgic, magical remake had instead become a symbol of everything fans felt was wrong with modern Disney: forced reinvention, out-of-touch decision-making, and a widening gap between the studio and the audience that made it great. Now, with boycotts gaining momentum, social media outrage showing no signs of slowing down, and Disney scrambling to contain the damage, the question remains: can Snow White recover? Or has it already secured its place as one of Disney's biggest misfires? Now, Snow White finds itself at the epicenter of growing frustration. Rather than sparking excitement, the film has become a case study in what many view as Disney's increasing tendency to prioritize reinvention over respecting the essence of the source material. Behind the scenes, things weren't much better. Reports of costly reshoots, delays, and creative disagreements pointed to a production in turmoil. Insiders claimed Disney was pouring millions into reworking scenes, hoping to avoid a box office disaster. But with a staggering $200 million budget, Snow White would need to gross at least $600 million just to break even, a daunting challenge, especially with growing boycott movements threatening ticket sales. The backlash surrounding Snow White isn't just about one film. It reflects a larger trend of declining patience with Disney's live-action remakes. While movies like Cinderella and The Jungle Book managed to strike a balance between nostalgia and innovation, others, like The Lion King and Mulan, were criticized for feeling soulless, corporate-driven, and disconnected from what made the originals beloved. Now, Disney faces a crucial test. Can Snow White overcome its rocky start and prove itself to audiences, or will it become another expensive miscalculation? With the controversy still raging and public sentiment turning against the project, the odds seem stacked against it.
Anyone who voted for him posting on her Instagram that there'll be another 4 years of hatred leaning us towards a world I don't want to live in, claiming that it's leading us towards a world that will be hard to raise my daughter in. And she went even further, warning followers to avoid using Elon Musk's X platform because he supported Donald Trump. Look, she did later apologise for her comments, but it's certainly not the smartest marketing move ahead of this film.
No, I mean, it's a great strategy, putting out your leading actress to go ahead and piss off half of the American population and potentially causing a huge backlash from it.
Apparently someone at Disney made a call. Somebody at Disney probably made a call to Rachel Zegler and said, hey, you need to shut your fucking mouth because you are destroying this movie and our reputation when we can't afford this.
She tried to make Snow White really woke, and there was a huge backlash from that. Well, unsurprising.
Career off of just criticizing things. She's always aggrieved about something. They agree with you on this issue. Find something else to criticize.
Rachel Zegler's comments didn't just spark controversy. They poured gasoline on an already raging fire. In addition to her now infamous remark wishing that Trump supporters never know peace, she went even further, writing, "There is a deep, deep sickness in the country that is shown in the sheer amount of people who showed up for this man who threatens our democracy." This statement only fueled the backlash, further alienating a significant portion of the movie-going audience. For many, it wasn't just an opinion. It felt like an outright attack on millions of Americans. What should have been a moment of reflection turned into another divisive comment, sparking renewed calls for Disney to take action. With Snow White already struggling under the weight of fan skepticism, production troubles, and the broader backlash against Disney's live-action remakes, Zegler's words only worsened the situation. Rather than building excitement for the film, the controversy turned it into a symbol of Hollywood's growing disconnect from its audience now. With boycotts gaining momentum and social media outrage showing no signs of letting up, the question remains, can Disney afford to stand by its embattled star? Or will Snow White become yet another high-profile casualty of the culture war?
Please. Because of Zegler, and because of her hideous poison, and the poison of wokeism that sort of like bled through the project. Look at this.
That is a red flag, just mentally, from a mindset point of view. I would love to live in this world, even if Kamala Harris...
They will fire Gina Carano just for being conservative and sharing conservative values, but then you have Rachel
Zegler also wrote, "There is a deep, deep sickness in this country that is shown in the sheer amount of people who showed up for this man who threatens our democracy."
Endorsements that anyone actually cares what they have to say about this stuff, because they should. Like, we don't need to hear from actors and artists about who your political candidate should be. You know, it's you're not qualified to have opinions on this stuff, and you shouldn't be trying to like direct people to vote a certain way. You know, for these people, they're there to entertain us. They're not there to lead us.
I think she's an idiot. She's one of the most unlikable people in Hollywood, and that speaks volumes because there's a lot of unlikable people in Hollywood. But she took it to a whole different level. And you are working for Disney. You're working for a company that is trying to cater to, well, should be anyway, trying to cater to families. Now you have this landslide election from President Trump, and there was no way this was going to go over well.
They're talking about all the other major Disney studio productions that are coming out. This is what's coming in. They're telling this to analysts and shareholders. And for the second time in a row, they have not mentioned the live-action remake of the movie that put the Disney company on the frickin' map in 1937. This is just... I don't think this movie's going to happen.
The Snow White controversy isn't just a one-off misstep. It's a symptom of a larger identity crisis within Disney. In the past, the studio struck a careful balance, reinventing classic stories while maintaining their essence, not hitting audiences over the head with messaging or sacrificing the heart of the story. But in recent years, Disney's approach has shifted, prioritizing reinvention over reverence, often making drastic changes that leave fans questioning whether the studio even understands what made these classics beloved in the first place. Audiences aren't rejecting change. They're rejecting change that feels forced, disconnected, or dismissive of what they loved about these stories. Fans didn't rally against Cinderella or The Jungle Book because those films honored their source material while making thoughtful updates. But when remakes feel like they are rewriting rather than reimagining, audiences push back. Now, Disney finds itself at a crossroads. Does it double down on its current direction, despite growing audience frustration, or take a step back and reassess what fans truly want? Snow White was meant to be a celebration of Disney's legacy, but instead, it's become a flashpoint for everything that's gone wrong with the company's recent creative choices. Whether Disney can salvage Snow White remains to be seen. But for many fans, the real question isn't about this one film. It's about whether Disney can reconnect with the magic that once made it untouchable. If the company keeps alienating the very audience that built its empire, the future of Disney's storytelling could be in serious jeopardy. The Snow White remake embodies the tension between honoring legacy and pushing for innovation. Just like Spider-Man, Into the Spider-Verse introduced a new, diverse take on Peter Parker, showing that diversity can coexist with existing narratives. Disney's approach to reimagining classics could do the same, if it focused on expanding, not replacing. Miles Morales isn't just a reworked Peter Parker. He's his own character with his own struggles and triumphs, representing diversity without erasing the beloved original. But Disney's recent remakes often feel more like replacements, alienating fans who see their cherished classics being rewritten rather than respectfully updated. In the case of Snow White, this has been particularly glaring. By stripping away the romance, drastically altering the dwarfs, and reimagining Snow White as a completely different character, Disney didn't just modernize the story, it fundamentally altered its heart. Fans who grew up loving the film's charm, innocence, and fairy tale romance feel as though those elements no longer hold value in the eyes of the studio. Of course, stories should evolve to reflect the times. But the difference between a well-received update and a divisive remake lies in how those changes are made. Are the updates enhancing the story, or are they replacing its essence? Are they expanding the legacy, or dismissing what made the original so beloved? For many, Disney's latest efforts lean toward the latter, focusing on reinvention for the sake of reinvention rather than thoughtfully evolving the story in a way that feels natural. The Snow White controversy is more than just one film. It reflects a larger issue. Fans want new, diverse stories, but they also want respect for the classics they grew up with. The success of films like Into the Spider-Verse shows that the two can coexist. But unless Disney strikes a better balance between innovation and legacy, it risks losing not just box office dollars, but the trust and loyalty that made it the entertainment giant it is today. The struggles of movies like The Little Mermaid and Mulan reflect a wider issue within Disney's approach to remakes. While both films had their moments, many viewers felt that the changes made were less about enriching the story and more about pushing a particular agenda. The shift felt forced, making it difficult for audiences to connect with the films in the same way they did with the original animated classics. In contrast, films like Cinderella and The Jungle Book found a better balance, respecting the original stories while adding new, fresh elements that felt organic. This is where Snow White has faltered. Fans aren't rejecting change, but they are rejecting changes that feel inauthentic, disconnected from the core of the original, or merely driven by a desire to make a statement. The success of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is a clear example of how diversity and fresh perspectives can be seamlessly integrated into a beloved franchise. Miles Morales wasn't just a repurposed Peter Parker. He was a fully developed character who brought his own experiences, culture, and journey to the table, making him a meaningful addition to the Spider-Man legacy. Disney's recent remakes, especially Snow White, have missed that mark. Instead of meaningful storytelling, there's a sense that changes are being made for the sake of being seen as progressive or modern, rather than for the benefit of the narrative. Today, as Disney continues to face declining box office returns and growing backlash from fans, the studio is at a crossroads. It's clear that audiences want diversity and modernization, but they also want those elements woven into stories with authenticity and care. The challenge for Disney now is whether they'll course correct in time or continue down a path that further alienates the very fan base that made them a household name. The core issue for Disney is a growing disconnect between what audiences want and the direction the company has been taking. Many fans are frustrated because Disney seems more focused on reinventing classic stories for the sake of it, rather than truly understanding what made those films beloved in the first place. Peter Pan and Wendy is a prime example. While it aimed to update a classic, it didn't manage to capture the same magic and heart that made the original so special. The movie didn't resonate with audiences, and it lacked the spark that made Disney's original tale so enduring. This shift in focus is also reflected in Disney's theme parks, which have long been considered the epitome of family-friendly entertainment. However, many visitors are now describing their experiences as more corporate than magical, signaling a broader issue that Disney is facing. It's losing the trust of its audience. Fans feel that Disney is prioritizing trend chasing over the storytelling and charm that made it a cultural institution. The Snow White controversy has only made this more apparent, highlighting the studio's struggles to balance nostalgia with the need for modernization. Fans aren't just asking for more of the same. They want creative storytelling that respects the original films while offering fresh perspectives that feel natural and organic, not forced. Ultimately, the question is whether Disney can hear this feedback and adjust its approach before the damage becomes irreparable. If the studio continues down its current path, it risks alienating its core audience even further. Disney needs to find a way to blend the heart and soul of its legacy with the new stories and diverse perspectives that audiences crave, without sacrificing the authenticity and magic that made them a household name. Rachel Zegler's growing reputation as a PR liability has become a significant hurdle for both her career and for Disney as it navigates the fallout surrounding Snow White. Her controversies, especially her outspoken political views, have made her a divisive figure, and reports suggest that this is beginning to have a serious impact on her professional prospects. With studios reportedly distancing themselves and whispers about her behavior on set growing louder, Zegler's once promising career is now in jeopardy. Disney, known for its image-conscious brand, has remained largely silent on her behalf, signaling discomfort with the situation. Unlike other celebrities who have successfully navigated controversies through carefully worded apologies or damage control, Zegler's attempts have been widely seen as insincere. This has only worsened her public image, making her seem out of touch with the very fans she's supposed to be connecting with. Hollywood is a business driven by marketability, and in an industry where public perception can make or break a career, Zegler's increasing baggage has made her a less appealing choice for casting directors. Industry insiders have questioned why studios would risk hiring someone with such a controversial profile, especially when there are plenty of other talented performers available. The controversy surrounding her personal life and political views has overshadowed her acting career, and speculation about her relationship with co-star Kit Connor only added fuel to the fire. While Zegler was quick to shut down rumors and request privacy, the focus on her personal life has contributed to the growing perception that she's more trouble than she's worth. For Disney, the stakes are high. Snow White was supposed to be a major revival of a beloved classic, but instead, it has become a case study in how easily a film's narrative can be overtaken by off-screen drama. Fans who were once excited for the reimagining are now questioning whether Disney truly understands what made its original story so magical. As the controversy continues, the real question isn't just about Zegler's future. It's about Disney's ability to connect with its audience. Can the studio course correct before the damage becomes irreversible? Or is Snow White destined to be one of the biggest misfires in recent memory? The fallout from this film may ultimately be more than just a PR headache. It could signal a larger crisis for Disney's reputation and its relationship with its audience.